All right, I have 2 minutes after the half hour, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. This is the North Central IPM Center's Pest and Progress webinar series. I'd like to welcome everybody today. I am Lene Jess. I'm one of the co-directors for the North Central IPM Center. We are one of 4 regional IPM centers, and we're supported by USDA NIFA through their Crop Protection and Pest Management Regional Coordination Program. And we have a mission to coordinate IPM across the region. So we're conducting this series to provide opportunities for project directors to report on their crop protection and pest management grants programs. And today we have Cliff Sadof, and his talk will be Indiana EIP highlights. And Cliff is from Purdue University. He's a professor and the IPM coordinator for Indiana. There is at the bottom of your screen, there should be a Q&A box. So if you have questions along the way, can you type those in there? And then at the end of Cliff's talk, we'll go through all the questions at one time instead of going through them while he's talking. I will put some links that Cliff provided me for their program in the chat box. So if you see those pop up, you can look at those. And then again, if you have questions, please put those in the Q&A. And with that, I'd like to introduce Cliff, and please take it away. Thank you, Cliff.
Thank you very much, Lene. I appreciate it. Well, today I'm going to go over some of the highlights of our extension implementation program that we have here in the state of Indiana that we run through Purdue University. Let's see. Okay, so one of the most important things that we are all dealing with is that there's been a market change since we actually got the grant to start working. Prior to COVID, we had full rooms like we see on the one on the left, and then afterwards, when we moved to social distancing, we had a combination. We had a lot lower attendance, but we've been increasing engagement by having virtual programming, and in large respect, this means that we actually, instead of reducing the number of people that we actually reached, we wound up actually increasing the number of people that we reached by about 2/3. One of the interesting things that we have found with this virtual programming is that we can collect a lot of information about how people use our virtual programs and the like. So it's become a little bit more of a data-intensive project. So one of the things that we thought we'd take the opportunity of would be to examine some of the behavior of people who have been attending a webinar program that we've been running for the last 11 years now on emerald ash borer. It's a national webinar program, and we were able to, through repeated surveys and through searching data that provided by Google, get some ideas about what facilitated engagement. So in other words, if we go through the effort of putting together a webinar program, how can we reach the most people? And one of the things we found was that recording and archiving is a really good practice because it allows you to post your webinars to YouTube, and YouTube has got its own set of indexing, so people can actually use titles to actually find your talks. And then, of course, it's important to advertise to groups who share some of the common interests. And then, so as I said, if you use keywords that are popular with your audience, so for example, when we were talking about use words like management and update, we wound up increasing the reach, the number of people who were actually viewing our webinars asynchronously or after they were given. And one of the things we found, though, even though we had at least 10 people viewing asynchronously to those who were viewing live, we found that their average view time was about 10 to 12 minutes for an hour-long program. So that means they're looking at it very selectively. So one of our other recommendations was that if you're going to be having a program or a video that's more than 5 or 10 minutes, you want to make sure that first 10-minute counts, because that's really what most people are going to watch. So you want to think about it like an abstract you're writing for an article where people are going to read the abstract, and then those who are interested will actually read the article. And so I think if you can tantalize them in the first 10 minutes, you'll be doing a lot better. So this was published in Environmental Entomology, how we went about doing this sort of stuff, and it's available in the links section that Lene graciously will put into the Q&A. All right. This EIP program that we have has a couple of large areas. The first one we want to talk about are the agronomic crops, and then we engage our stakeholders through bulletins, manuals, newsletters, field days, and a bunch of workshops. One of the things we found was that with our winter workshops, the crop management workshops, we reach about 1,000 people per year. And when we survey these folks, we find that 96% of them say that they would be likely to apply the information about pest management on their next crop, and that a large majority think that they will implement IPM in their decision-making process. These people who attend these workshops, about half of them say that they self-report that some of the decisions that they make at the workshop saves them over $10,000. And also about half of these people who attend the workshops are farming more than 10,000 acres. Surveys of our pest and crops newsletters find some equally encouraging results, that 99% found the knowledge were improved, and almost 4 out of 5 of them feel that they use the information to make treatment decisions. And we partner with people. I'm an entomologist, but I partner with Darcy Telenko, Bill Johnson in weeds and in plant pathogens, and Chris Krupke does our field crop work on the insects. So, a lot of our education is rooted with hands-on training. And here we see some folks holding these yellow books. These aren't Bibles. These are actually our soybean, our bean and corn field guides. These are the ones that they use to get information about scouting and root digging and the like. And we have given them at the Diagnostic Training Center, we give them opportunities to actually dig and look for rootworms and the like. This is Corey Gerber. He manages the Diagnostic Training Center, and he's giving people a lesson on how to do a root rating and how to actually examine the roots of corn for root feeding insects. Similarly, Darcy Telenko takes advantages of our field plots to set up demonstration plots on corn disease and the impacts of different management techniques. She publishes regularly on her blog to give people an idea of what's going on with diseases. So here's a map of the tar spot distribution in Indiana, and you can see that it was fairly widespread. She also will summarize the results of her work on what products work well for different kinds, which diseases were present and where they were. You can see she's talking about tar spot with some photographs about how she actually evaluates them, and then where tar spot was occurring in Indiana. And then she also has some results on some insecticide trials that she uses to figure out which are the best treatments to protect corn from foliar diseases. And this summary is inside that the manual that I showed you earlier that's in the background. We also have a very active weed science program. Bill Johnson in the back over here is the lead on this program. He always jokes around that when people look at weed scientists, he has a little comment that says, "No, the other kind of weed, not marijuana." But he says that so he has a fairly large group of people who are working with him, and he's very active during the field days. One of the things you can see here is some of the results of some of his herbicide trials, but in the background, they actually maintain a nursery of different types of weeds, so people can look at what they look like at different times of year. One of the things that Bill works on very carefully is he works with this Take Action Committee, which is a regional group in North Central region that is actually working to try to slow the development and the onset of herbicide resistance. So this is done in collaboration with the chemical industry as well as a bunch of other land grant universities. He's also put together an applied guide. What you see on the left, the Applied Weed Science Guide for the Field Scout, that helps Field Scouts identify weeds and weed seeds at varying life stages. So this is quite helpful for somebody who's seriously interested in improving their weed management. So a lot of the information we talk about is through the Pest and Crops newsletter, which I mentioned earlier is used quite heavily by our readership and comes out twice monthly, actually, and weekly during the growing season. There's also one of the things that we use in there is a nice calendar of events, and these is some of the events that we had this year over the summer. So Bob Nielsen has also is recently retired, but he's also been very active with the Crop Diagnostic Training and Research Center. We just bring people pretty much from all over the Midwest to come in and look at plants growing under real field conditions. Most recently, we've included some youth. So these are FFA youth over here who are learning the fine details on identifying weeds. And of course, no workshop could be complete without giving them a chance to play around with a sweep net in some soybean fields. Most recently, we are with the hiring of Elizabeth Long. We're moving into some new crops. She's working on hemp. She's actually the head of the hemp she's the chair of the hemp working group, which is also funded by the NCR regional center over here. And she has been producing videos on how to scout hemp for insect pests. So outside of the field crops, we are also quite active in specialty crops, which would include edible horticultural crops as well as ornamentals. And we have a newsletter called Facts for Fancy Fruit, which is useful for people who are growing fruit in Indiana. And it's a great vehicle for communicating some really hot topics. One of the hottest topics that we had was in the middle of July. Spotted lanternfly was detected in the southeastern corner of Indiana. That has everybody very nervous. Because it's along the Ohio River, so you can imagine adult spotted lanternflies laying eggs on these slow-moving coal barges. So there's people are concerned, and this is a great way to get information out to the growers. Pretty much right now, the efforts in the state, in addition to trying to eradicate the small population that is along the river in this forest of trees of heaven, we're trying to get people to recognize what to look for, especially in winter. Here we see some egg masses on a post in a vineyard, and we're telling people on how to report these egg masses and the like, because if we find it in one spot, we're concerned that it may be in other places that we have yet to detect. So early detection and rapid response is always key to the management of an invasive pest like this. This is the Vegetable Crops Hotline, is another communication blog that we use that primarily goes for veg crops. And most recently, with our most recent hire, Laura Engel, she has been working on high tunnels, and she just came out with a brand new guide on how to manage pests for cucumber production. And interestingly enough, prior to her work, she pretty much the lore was that the plants that were growing in high tunnels were protected from pests. And actually, it turns out that they get the worst of both worlds. They're protected from rain, so they start getting greenhouse pests, things like mites and spider mites and thrips and such, and whiteflies. Then they also will get pests that can be flying in from the field. So this is a very recent guide. It just came out last year, and those interested in high tunnels would probably want to take a look at this, and I expect that there'll be more coming from her shop soon. There's also some information about videos that we have for doing various operations like installing high tunnel exclusion screen to keep the bugs out to begin with. We also doing some work with community IPM, which includes some urban agricultural products that we've got. There's a small farms group, an urban ag group, an organic ag group, local foods movement, and also a beginning farmers group that we are working with. And they have associated blogs where they can post information on how to promote these 5 efforts. Another blog that we have been supporting has been the Purdue Landscape Report, which actually won an award this past year from the American Society for Horticulture Sciences for an outstanding blog. And what we do is we write articles. It comes out twice a month on pests, and we give them the latest thinking. Similarly, we support another blog called Turf Tips that goes out to turf managers throughout the region, and it's useful for situations like we have this year. This year, many of you probably already know that we've had a huge fall armyworm outbreak that resulted from the early spinning up of the hurricanes and blowing up these pests up in from the south, and it's just consuming turf. That's been reported in about 30 states. So this is a good way for people to get information about this stuff. When we do our evaluations, we find that Purdue Landscape Report, which is indicative of a lot of our other blogs, the vast majority feel that the information they get has a positive economic impact on their operation. They can produce better quality plants. Their management is better. They're better able to diagnose their problems. And of course, because it's a blog, the information is quite timely. We are continuing to support our smartphone apps, the Purdue Plant Doctor app series at PurduePlantDoctor.com. 2 of these things are free, but we are in the process of moving this all to a mobile-friendly website that allows people to make diagnoses. And just like the newsletters, we find people who we've surveyed who are using our apps say that it greatly increases their confidence in their diagnosis, helps them treat more effectively, and because they have pictures of the insects or the diseases or the nutritional problems on the phone, they can communicate what they're seeing much more effectively to their clients. The last area that we're working with the EIP grant has to do with pollinators, and Brock Harper, our bee biologist, is working and developing the Heartland Honeybee Breeders, working with the Heartland Honey Breeders Cooperative. He's trying to improve the genetic stock of bees. He looks at bees almost like cattle. He's trying to get better stock for breeding. In order to expand on some of the progress of his predecessor, who developed a strain that would bite the mites, the parasitic mites that attack bees. He's working with citizens to try and identify new traits that can be exploited and included in the breeding stock to improve the health of bees. So he uses a lot of tools as technologically advanced as genomic sequencing and digital phenotyping, down to actually counting the number of bees with traits that would actually have them physically bite mites. So far, he reaches over 3,500 beekeepers in meetings, and it's a pretty national program. So this new professor, he's working quite quite well to network himself with the national work in pollinator health. He's also had some recent partnerships with Food Science, which is great publications for the Alumni Association. They actually made this ice cream called a Gold Rush, which is a honey flavored ice cream. And of course, they made a mead from their boiler bee honey. He's being quite creative in promoting the utility and why we're concerned about protecting pollinators and why we're concerned about bees, as well as creating new partnerships to get people concerned about their welfare. So with that, I'll be happy to answer questions.
All right, thank you, Cliff. Just remind people, if you do have questions, please put them in the Q&A and I will ask them for you. But I have a couple of questions already here, Cliff. We were just talking about Brock's program with a citizen scientist. How does he get word out to citizen scientists to use in his research?
He has a blog that he works with the honeybee breeders, and so on his webpage, I think if you Google Purdue Bee Biology, you'll come up with his webpage, and he writes quite frequently.
Okay. Another question was, you were talking a little bit about the spotted lanternfly program, but I know like in Michigan, we've just sent out some information for people to really start looking for them since it's getting closer and closer. So how are you getting word out to people to look for that in other areas besides Southern Indiana?
So what we're doing is we are using our blogs that already hit our clientele. So the Facts for Fancy Fruit get the fruit growers and the grape growers who are the grape and the apple growers who are most concerned about this will pay attention. So similarly with the Purdue Landscape Report, because sometimes this can move around on nursery stock, it can move around on stone. We talk about that in there as well. We'll be ginning up a public relations campaign. We've developed alliances with. So actually, what happened was Elizabeth Barnes, who's been working with me for a number of years, I've had her go to. I've been sending her over to Pennsylvania, where they have their annual workshops on the spotted lanternfly, so she can keep up with what's going on. And as such, we are able to share information between states. So. Elizabeth Long, who is our fruit person, worked with Amy Stone when she was in Ohio, and Amy has graciously volunteered to help us work with, help us adapt their information to putting Purdue logos on. We have the same arrangement with people in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. So we. As you know, we're really a cooperative extension organization, and when things happen, we always are sharing our information so we can get the information out. So we're well connected, thanks to the support of this program.
Great. How do you, are you responding to challenges about resistant pests, like resistant insects in BT corn or resistance weeds with Roundup Ready and now dicamba resistant crops, that kind of stuff?
So Chris Krupke, who does the insect part, and Bill Johnson does the weed part. They're both very active in their respective disciplines, and they're trying to convey the latest information on how to use the techniques. So Christian does a lot of work on promoting basic IPM, which is the way to conserve the activity of the resistance traits. So basically, if you use the same trait over and over again, pretty much you have about 8 shots at using a resistance trait before, at least a resistant BT, of using a BT before the pest becomes resistant. So if you use it all at once, you're going to be stuck after 8 years. But if you use it as well as other tools that could be available, that would conserve the utility of that tool. Similarly, the work that Bill Johnson does with the herbicide take action team is another effort along those same lines.
Great. Another question, were there any outreach activities you tried during COVID that didn't work as well as you hoped? And have your clientele requested more web-based programs now, even as things have opened up, or do they want mostly in-person meetings, or do they want a combination?
Yes. Yes to all of that. Okay. So, early on before we had started the webinar, we were talking about what happens during a power outage. Well, when we have our we had our field days in 2020, and we had a couple of tornadoes blow through and just completely knock the power out of the farm where we had a field day where we were trying to broadcast from. That that didn't help. So basically it just shut down. So when the Midwest weather does what the Midwest weather does, we're out of luck. But one of the things we really noticed is that we're getting a lot more new people coming to our audiences. So many people who couldn't afford to spend to drive and maybe get a hotel and stay someplace, they are more likely just to tune in. So we're really increasing that viewership. That said, there is nothing better than eye contact and being in person in terms of developing the relationship. So we're in the process of trying to seek a balance, and many of us are taking hybrid approaches. So we'll post the lectures that we put together, that people can see those things asynchronously, as well as have presentations in person. And I don't know about many of you probably on this call right now probably are in the same boat that we are. Every day we find out that another session that was planned to be in person is now going to be virtual. Okay, because the COVID situation is quite dynamic and we're trying to respond to it. Fortunately, now we have some better tools. We know that I mean, one of the challenges we have is that, credits for continuing education for pesticides and those sorts of things are based on hour-long talks, and human beings do not stare at computers well for an hour at a time. So we have to. So based on some of the research we've done with the webinars, if you can be short, crisp, and to the point, you can really get your information out as effectively. I mean, one of the more humbling things that I think I've appreciated myself is that my hour-long talk really only has about 15 minutes of information. So I think that, and it's not that I'm just sitting there just, telling stories. A lot of it has to do with presentation style. When you're working with adults and you want to keep them engaged, you ask them questions and you bring out the answers through the dialogue. And that's a very different interaction than when you are giving a talk.
Great. I'm going to put you on the spot here. So,
go right ahead.
We're all kind of working through this so have you thought about how you might evaluate how people are learning in person versus maybe online, and if there's a difference in those two methods, or the hybrid method even?
The answer to that question is no. I haven't thought about it, but now that I think about it, I think we can do it rather easily. Okay. In that, so we have a impact assessment team. Julie Hudeman and her group we work with here. She helps us develop surveys to assess impact. And one of the things that she's done is, in addition to asking the standard question, did you learn things? Would you implement these sorts of things? She has a standard tag question that cuts across programming, depending that we develop together. So basically we have a set of questions, no more than 5 or 10, and we give these questions through Qualtrics surveys, which is a web-based survey when we're doing a Zoom. And we can also do it the same way. If we have their email, we can send them that material afterwards, even when they've been there in person. So it'd be, I'm not sure, I'm not a social scientist, but I would guess that if you would compare the results of people going to the conferences versus going to virtual conferences, you could come up with some comparison. So I think it's very doable. It's a great idea, Lene.
All right, great, thank you. Well, we are right after 2:00, so thank you again, Cliff, for your presentation. We really appreciate you taking the time. And I just want to let everybody know that our next webinar will be on Wednesday, October 13th. And that's kind of a deviation from, we've been doing like the third Wednesday, but because of other meetings, it will be on October 13th next time. We'll have Lee Miller, from University of Missouri speaking on the Missouri EIP project. And again, another deviation is we're actually going to have a second speaker. So it'll be an hour long instead of half hour long. And that one will be Ji Jiang, who's also from University of Minnesota or Missouri. And she's going to be speaking on developing a novel mechanical strategy for control of bill bug. If you want to know more about our webinars or more about the North Central IPM Center, you can go to our website, which is ncipmc.org. You can find out about our webinars there. And then if you'd like to subscribe to our newsletter, which is the central issue, you can also find that on the website at ncipmc.org. So again, thank you, Cliff. We appreciate your time, and I hope everybody has a good